Thanksgiving begins a very special time of the year for us. It's the time of peace and reflection and of getting ready for the new year. One thing we should all be thankful for is that we live in America, where we have the freedom to change things and the opportunity to...
Welcome to the Drunk Turkey Show, starring Big Blue.
Can I say hi, Kim?
Hi. Oh, I love you. You are just like a giant.
Or improvisation.
Lady Liberty just squirted in my face. And when you do drink with a straw, the myth is you get more drunk because you get more air mixed in.
Hi, Maggie.
Like, you know how the fans going like this? It goes, ooh, yeah, when it hits my butthole. Last time I went to Mexico, I stopped by a little stand and the lady had gloves. I was like, lady, take off those gloves. I need that shit.
It wasn't.
I'm drinking beer so you can feel good and like it tastes good. What the hell's the point of this?
And Daniel J.
I got a friend named Jonathan Martinez who's not allowed in the library. Yo puede hablar español cuando yo te mando. You look very handsome tonight, LJ.
Every day, it's an everyday thing. I gotta
wake up. This is excellence.
Y'all watch them every Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. I get to see them every day. I get to see that. I get to see those chicks every day. What's on his face?
And the other ones.
Year 3000, it still sucks. This is Phil J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm Daniel J. and alongside with me is Big Blue. Good morning, Blue. How are you doing today?
Good morning, man. Good morning. I'm doing good. We had a steady day at work this morning, so just got home. Gonna get some sleep here in a little bit.
Interesting, man. So how was your night at work? Anything interesting happen?
No, nothing too serious. I mean, COVID's died down. It's more like strep and flu. So that's a good thing because a couple of weeks ago, COVID was picking up again. I was worried. It was like, not again, especially since I caught it. So
I hear you, man. I hear you. So I'm glad that everything is not as crazy as it could be, and things were all right for you. So we got a little bit of I guess news that's come in the last couple of days referencing one of the victims in the or surviving victims in the 1122 King Road house. Bethany, apparently I'm pronouncing her last name wrong. I'm pronouncing it Funk. Somebody in the comment section was like, no, it's not how you pronounce it. And I looked at their way of pronouncing it and I couldn't figure it out. So I apologize if I'm pronouncing this wrong. It's not my intention. I have no idea, man. Everywhere I've seen has pronounced it Funk, so that's why I've been pronouncing it that way. Yeah, and she hasn't come out and publicly talked, so I can't figure out what it is or her pronunciation. I mean, you look at Moscow, the city or the town that they live in. It's spelled very similar to Moscow, but it is what it is. So we've had a couple of affidavits come out referencing Bethany Funke in her statement and basically accusing her of having some sort of evidence that could exonerate Bryan Kohberger. Let's look at some of this paperwork. So this is the state of Idaho as the plaintiff, Bryan Kohberger's defendant, affidavit and support motion for out-of-state service. This is Richard B. Bytoni, who is a criminal investigator hired to assist in the representation of Bryan Kohberger. He was appointed by Ann Taylor to investigate the alleged incident which led to the arrest of Bryan Kohberger. And it kind of just goes into some of the details here about, who was there and at what time and separate rooms and things of that nature. But the most interesting part about this is it talks about Bethany Funke's bedroom was on the first floor. The other surviving roommate's bedroom was on the second floor. Bethany Funke was interviewed by police on several occasions, and she disclosed things she heard and things she saw. Right? Bethany Funke was present at the home 8 hours later when police were called and arrived on scene and discovered the homicides. Now, a lot of folks have been saying that she discovered the homicides based on this sentence. I don't think that's accurate. It says Bethany Funke was present at the home 8 hours later when police were called, arrived on scene, and discovered the homicides, which I am assuming that they're referring to the police who arrived on scene and the police that discovered the homicides.
Yeah.
All right. Now, that doesn't mean that nobody else discovered it. That's just what this states, and this is when the police discovered it. Because, like I said, we've talked about this before, and we think that there's a good opportunity or a good chance that one of the neighbors is actually the one who saw the bodies and made the phone call. And so I'll continue. It says here, during the course of my investigation, it became known to me that Bethany Funke has information material to the charges against Kohberger. Portions of that information Ms. Funke has is exculpatory to the defendant. Ms. Funke's information is unique to her experiences and cannot be provided by another witness. So I want to brainstorm a little bit with you about that. So first, let's find out what exculpatory evidence is. In criminal law, exculpatory evidence is evidence such as a statement tending to excuse, justify, or absolve the alleged fault or guilt of a defendant. In other words, the evidence is favorable for the defendant, in contrast to exculpatory evidence, which tends to stress guilt. All right, so there are a few things that we know about this case. One is that shortly after this issue, that Brady Gigolo deal was brought up, referencing possible officers that were involved. And we went through what Brady was. Brady was basically some evidence being withheld that could, exonerate or be in favor of the defense by the prosecution or the police. And the Giglio part is the credibility aspect of a witness or officer. And so it could tie into each other. I see that as being a very plausible thing. The next question that I have for you, Blue, is she is trying to fight this, right? She wants to quash it. And the reason being is they're saying that there is no need for her to be brought to trial during a preliminary hearing, that the witnesses are usually brought into trial at the hearing, the actual hearing for their guilt. In my opinion, if you have evidence to exonerate somebody and somebody's sitting behind bars who is an innocent person, you get that evidence out there as fast as possible. What do you think, Blue?
I think that's what his defense is trying to do. But I mean, I don't know what angle they're trying to go. What she has or what she knows that could exonerate him.
Right.
But I think from all the cases I know, most of the time the witnesses get brought out during the actual trial, not during the opening statements.
Right. Well, during this portion of the trial, the judge is going to look at if there was probable cause to go forward with trial or not. Right. And if there's evidence out there that is, that can exonerate him or show that he is innocent of this crime, then I think it needs to be brought forward. I don't care what time it is. I don't care what the crime is. I don't care who the victim is. If there's evidence that shows that somebody is sitting behind bars that shouldn't be sitting behind bars, that should be brought up immediately. I mean, put yourself in the shoes of this person. In America, you are innocent until proven guilty. And if you are innocent being charged, which it's happened in America, it's happened several times where people are charged or people are arrested or people are convicted for a crime that they didn't commit. And so if there's evidence that can, show you that you're not responsible for this crime, then in my opinion, it needs to be brought forward as soon as possible because the rights of an innocent man are being violated. Now, I'm not saying that he's innocent and I'm not saying that he's not the guy. I personally have no idea. There's a lot of evidence on both sides that point to one direction or another. I can't look past the fact that he operates a vehicle that was matched similar to the one that was driven around by that house. The fact that it didn't have a front license plate, he didn't have a front license plate at the time, and the fact that he was out and about around the time of the commission of the crime. That he's seen before the crime is committed in Pullman. He is seen after in Pullman, and those things are corroborated by his phone pings. And so now, whether or not his car was in Moscow, Idaho, he didn't have his phone on, so we can't corroborate those aspects. But I do find it kind of odd that during the commission of this crime, he was not in phone service. And so those things are basically what the prosecution is looking at, not to mention the DNA on the knife sheath. That kind of ties everything together. But there's a lot of evidence that you can go into and kind of dissect each one of those pieces. Now, when it comes to Bethany, when we spoke last time, I had thought that perhaps the evidence that she would have would be maybe because according to the affidavit, and I'll pull this up on page 14. That was on 12. I'm sorry. Let me see. This is why we're taking a little bit longer than normal. So in the affidavit, she puts and says that she was with basically at the same party at the Sigma Chi house. All right, right here. On the evening of November 12th, Chapin Kernodle are seen by Funke at the Sigma Chi house on the University of Idaho campus at 735 Nez Perez Drive at approximately 9 p.m. on November 12th to 1:45 a.m. on November 13th. Funke also estimated that at approximately 1:45, Chapin and Kernodle returned to the King Road residence. Funke also stated that Chapin did not live at the King Road residence, but was a guest of Kernodle. So initially, I thought perhaps there was a altercation. There's been rumors that there was altercation there, and that maybe somebody at this house maybe had something to do with it. But in my opinion, that is not exonerating evidence. Just knowing that there was an altercation somewhere. Exonerating evidence would have to be putting somebody else at the crime scene at the time, or putting the Kohberger elsewhere, not there, right? And so there's a couple of aspects to it. Maybe she did see an altercation, and maybe she also saw somebody from that altercation at the house. Or maybe perhaps she heard the voices and recognized the voice. Now, this says here that Mortenson and Funke both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms by 4 a.m. So this leads me to believe that Bethany was there from at least 1:45, because she puts Ethan and Xana coming back home, up into 2 a.m. where she indicates everybody was there, and at 4 a.m. when they find out that all of them were in their rooms during the commission of the crime. So she didn't leave. She didn't leave with Kohberger. There's a lot of rumors out there that she took off, she left with Kohberger, things like that. No, she was there at 4 a.m. And so this says here, this is with the exception of Kernodle, who received a DoorDash order at the residence at approximately 4 a.m. Now, I'll go on to read. Let's see. So it doesn't say much. It talks about a lot about what Mortenson says, which is pretty odd, knowing that there's two people there. What did she hear? Remember also, excuse me, this says here the combination of Mortenson's statements to law enforcement, reviews of forensic downloads of records of Funke and Mortenson's phone, a video of the suspect video as described below leads investigators to believe the homicides occurred between 4 and 4:25 a.m. Now, the reason why I think this aspect is here about the phone was, remember, Ethan's sister had stated that Dylan had contacted everybody in the house after this person had left, right? Now, if one of those persons was Bethany, that would indicate, and they talked at that time, that would indicate around what time that this situation had occurred. And so I think that's why they're using the download of the phone records. It's not anything other than the fact of what time did this person call after this issue had occurred.
Yeah. I can remember she said she called everybody in the house to see if everybody's okay, but I think she's the only one that answered, right? And maybe that's her theory, that she's the only one that answered, and that gave her the okay that nothing really happened and everything was okay.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. That was my if this went down in the manner that they said it went down, right? That's the only reasonable explanation that I can come up with. I'm not saying that is exactly what had happened, but if this situation were to have gone down in the manner that they said, that there was loud noises, people were heard, possibly somebody came out and screamed, which I'm not sure that even happened, because there's no reference to screaming on the ring audio. It was able to pick up voices. It was able to pick up whimpering, a dog barking, but not somebody yelling, "Shut up, quiet," things of that nature, right? According to our knowledge, there could be, but according to the probable cause affidavit.
See, and that's the thing that I don't get. Like, the ring camera doesn't really work off sound; it works off motion. So it might have been something else that it picked up, and it just recorded during that time. That's why we didn't hear the rest.
Well, we're assuming it's a ring camera. I'm not sure if does it say it's a ring?
I know. I have to look into the paper.
Yeah, because it could be a different type of device that continually holds data. And also, it's possible that law enforcement can go in there and pick up within a certain amount of time. Hey, how's it going? Thank you for stopping by. And so, cheers, keep up on the good path, my favorite. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you're not subscribed to Truth and Transparency, make sure you guys do so. Good friend of the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And so, in my opinion, that is what is happening now. What statement could she possibly have or have given that maybe perhaps exonerates Brian? Perhaps maybe he recognized one of the voices inside the house. And when she got the call from Dylan, like, did you hear that? Did you see that? She's like, oh, don't worry about it. That was just so-and-so. And, there was an instance in here in the probable cause affidavit where Kaylee assumed that the person that said, I think somebody's in the house, was Kaylee. And so, muffled voices and things of that nature can alter what you're hearing, especially if you're not prepared to hear something. Those things can happen. But my opinion, it has to be that she saw somebody or heard somebody that excludes Kohberger, unless she was in communication with Kohberger, but his phone was off that night.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it, like, that's the part that bothers me. Now, I know I had seen in here in the live chat, somebody said law enforcement is lying or keeps lying. I'm not necessarily certain that they're lying as much as they're withholding information.
Yeah. I think they have to withhold a little bit to keep the evidence.
Well, I'm talking about like evidence that could exonerate Kohberger. Oh. Like, if you have something like, and I made the statement before, like, if, for instance, let's just say you're accused of a crime that may have been committed last night, where you were as soon as you got out of work, right? And it took you, let's just say, an extra 15 minutes to get home. And somebody that you may have motive for gets injured or passes away. They start looking at you. They're saying, all right, this happened after Blue got out of work. He had time to get there and he had time to get home. Now, what your excuse is that you went to a gas station. They go to the gas station, they look up the video footage, they find the footage that puts you at the gas station at that time. And instead of saying or turning it over because it doesn't flow with their wording or with their narrative of the crime that it committed, they hide that evidence. Right? And that's Brady. That's a Brady rule. I think that maybe perhaps there's something in here, because when you look at when this was drawn up and then the Brady Giglio was a couple of days later, I don't think that's a coincidence. Now, could it be that they were trying to not air out what Bethany may have said?
Probably.
I mean, that is the angle that I'm looking at when it comes to this. I don't think Because if she was there, because there's been some rumors that have been going out there that she may have had a relationship with Kohberger, right? Like,
he was dating one of them from the house.
Right.
Or,
I don't think that's true, because if he was there and one of them said that he was there, that would be in the probable cause affidavit. That would put him at the house, even if all he was doing was picking up one of the roommates.
Yeah.
You know, and so that would put him in the house, just like the DoorDash driver. They put them at the house at that time. And so I don't think that that's, you know, plausible. Is it possible? Yes, of course. You know, anything's possible. But is it plausible? I don't think so. So, you know, and I know that's gonna make the haters mad, and we'll see it later. You know, I think half of the, like a third of the comment section of the haters. We had one person who's hating on us so bad they're like, I kept deleting their comment because they were just rude and inappropriate, and they're like, we're gonna expose you for all the deleted comments, and I'm like, dude, nobody cares about your deleted comment. Like, nobody cares what your little mind thinks. You know, go be inappropriate on somebody on your own channel. Go talk about things that you think are inappropriate. But on our end, you know, if you come out with inappropriate things, I'm just going to remove it. It doesn't bother us any. But at the same time, we want to be respectful to the families and to everybody that's involved. And to those that are also in our chat and comment section, you know, they don't need to be, you know, this is not the place or the time. You know, if you're not interested in our content, don't watch.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I would say we try not to get that narrative of being called internet sleuths, even though we've been called internet sleuths by big names already. So
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we are commentating on the information that we have and giving our perspective of the evidence. Yeah. Are we trying to solve a case? I mean, if we have the opportunity to, I'm not going to put it past it. If somebody wants to come forward and they have the information, like for instance, we broke a story last night on the Amy Malovic case, where a couple of years ago, there was somebody who police were looking at, and they had named this person. We got that name. We put it out yesterday. To our knowledge, we're the only channel that has done that. Our hope in that situation is that it's going to jog memory of somebody who have seen that guy. Maybe perhaps, maybe he's acted oddly with somebody that they know, and now that they know that he was investigated for that crime, or is still being a person of interest in that crime, maybe perhaps that'll help. Let's see. We have a $5.50 super chat from Mikey. There is absolutely no way the prosecution gets a conviction with this crap. I can't even get past the crime scene. None of it sees a courtroom. He walks. That's very plausible. That is very, very plausible that this case, even if Kohberger is guilty, and thank you so much, Amy Ruker and Mike. Yes, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
It is very much plausible that this case doesn't go and see a courtroom. There's been a lot of things here, you know, that make us believe that possibly, you know, law enforcement has botched this case, you know, and it's not even just the fact that we have the knife sheath with two officers who have been accused of lying under oath. That's not a good look. You have, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and one thing we have to look at that I saw is pretty interesting is the story we broke out last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of this one, but like not really. Like they're way too different.
Details.
The details, like the car, they tracked that he owned the car. He got picked in a lineup, and the guy's still walking free.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he also failed the lie detector test. He had some suspicious statements about having Amy in his vehicle. Yeah, no, 100%. In fact, though, tomorrow night we have a few sources in that case. One of them being James Renner. He's an author writer. He helped us out a lot. He has done a lot of research on Amy Malovic. And tomorrow we have one of Amy's friends on the show, who's been on Dateline and on several other news stations, who's going to come forward and kind of give us her opinion on that case. So I highly recommend you give us a like and subscribe and check it out tomorrow.
Yeah, there's 474 of y'all here. We need like 300 to pass the 35,000 mark. We're stuck at 35,000. I think 36 sounds better for me.
Yeah, let's get us up to 36K. We'd appreciate that. A lot of reasonable doubt. I agree. I agree. You know, when you look at this case, like I said before, you have the officers who were first shown up on scene. You also have the preservation of the scene. We've seen videos or images where they've used stools as that was part of the crime scene as a tool to secure the crime scene. We've seen officers walking in and out of that house without booties or any protective equipment on them other than just their uniform and boots. We've seen the possibility of, well, the Brady Giglio thing. Now there's a possibility that there was some statements made to police that would exonerate Bryan Kohberger. And in my opinion, that exoneration has to point in the direction of somebody else, and it has to be pretty concrete. Because if it was just a fight at Sigma Chi, that doesn't necessarily mean that transferred from Sigma Chi to his house. You know what I'm saying? Does it make it a strong possibility? Yeah. But does it mean necessarily that that's the case? No. And so I think if it was that situation, that is a defense, right? That would be found out in regular court when you're going through your proceedings to try to, show your presumption of innocence, right? You're going to talk about a possible fight at Sigma Chi. You're going to talk about the relationship between Kaylee and Jack DeCourt ending 3 weeks prior to the issue. You're going to talk about, or prior to the incident, you're going to talk about how that boyfriend was there that night with them at the corner club. You're going to talk about how Adam told somebody, and it's suspected from the Goncalves family that it was Jack DeCourt, told them something that got back to Kaylee within 89 feet from leaving that door. Now, we all know that there's, as fast as text messages go out, they're not instantaneously. And so a text message or a call would have had to have gone out, probably a text message being how fast that it got back to Kaylee, unless he was still on the phone texting her while he was on the phone talking to Adam, which is another thing I doubt because he was in a bar. And it's typically loud in bars. And so if, whatever got back to Kaylee happened within 80 feet, it was important enough for her to continue to be on her phone the entire time while she was at the grub truck video. People were coming up to her, people were hugging her, things like that. And she didn't realize it until they were right in her personal space. And so to me, that kind of sounds and looks like, and go watch it again, go watch Kaylee and just keep your eye on her, and you can fast forward it. You can speed it up. Majority of that time she's on that phone talking to somebody. And I think it's in referencing to whatever Adam had said. And, those things had occurred. We also know that she went on a date within 3 weeks of her breaking up with, and it was her that broke up with Jack. So there's a lot of those things that are going on. I wouldn't be surprised if this does end up making it to court or trial, that Jack DeCourt is also a witness for the defense, because they're going to want to talk to him and they're going to want to bring up means, opportunity, and motive. Is he capable of committing this crime? Does he fit the description of what Dylan Mortenson said? Is he of that height? Yeah, he's about 6 foot. Does he have bushy eyebrows? Yeah. Does he have the opportunity to commit this crime? Well, apparently he went home like at 12:30, 1 o'clock, supposedly, because according to the Goncalves family, Kaylee and Maddie had invited him to go to another bar. However, he didn't want to go because he was tired, yet he was on the phone with them throughout the entire time that they, from the time that they had left to the time that they went to the grub truck, and mysteriously got off the phone at 2:30 and didn't get back on the phone until after the incident was discovered, right? Because Goncalves family said that they immediately called him in the morning and he was not answering his phone when they found out that this incident occurred. And this incident was on the news. Well, the 911 call didn't come till noon, so we know that news wasn't there until after that. Now, let's just say they were extremely fast and there that quickly. It's still pretty good time frame. And so those are the situations. As far as the ID it wasn't in his car. It was in his Pennsylvania home, inside of a glove, inside of a box. Yeah. It's inside of the warrant. I see that there's her ID in his car. It wasn't in his car. There's 2 separate search warrants. There's one for the car, and it talks about quarters and registration and all this other stuff. And then there's the warrant from the Pennsylvania home, and that warrant is where they have the ID cards inside of a glove, inside of a box.
Yeah.
Now
that's one thing that they haven't disclosed, and they're not going to disclose to a court. And that's the thing that I want to tell everybody. The preliminary hearings in June, but the court date might be next year. Who knows? I'm seeing cases be pushed back quite a bit.
So what do you think? What do you think is the type of evidence that Bethany possibly could have that would exonerate Bryan Kohberger?
I would say maybe when they went through her phone, maybe she was awake, and maybe I don't know, they never said if she was a TikTok person, maybe she had some proof that they have the voice of somebody coming in, or I don't know. Maybe she's at the front door, so maybe she opened the door for somebody, looking for somebody.
Right.
She's at the bottom. She's at the bottom where the front door is at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's true. Jackie says, "How do you explain the DNA on the knife sheath connecting Kohberger?" So that aspect, if we were to believe Arthur Bloom's articles, right, and he's an investigative journalist and author. He wrote the airmail article in the form of a short story, so there's a lot of fat in that. But when you break down and cut the fat out and just get down to the bare bones of what that story says, they only found a speck of DNA, very small amount. Then he comes out later, I think it's on Megyn Kelly, and he talks about how the Moscow, Idaho police forensic lab they didn't find anything, that they had to send it to a lab in Texas, which I'm not completely certain is true. I haven't seen a search warrant for or any paperwork from Idaho referencing a Texas lab. But let's just say that is true. That it was sent to a Texas lab, and that is a startup company that was working in technology for cold case files, degraded DNA, old DNA, things of that nature, and able to bring those up to light. Depending on how long that company's been in line or in business and how many cases will determine the reliability of that information. Now, you have, in my opinion, it's a pretty big piece. It is a huge piece. It doesn't, like I said, I tend to side usually with the police until I start seeing some things that make me question things. And I've seen some things that make me question things in this case. And so I'm kind of in the middle right now. Like I said, and I've always said, when it comes to this case, my decision will be made whether or not Bryan Kohberger is guilty or not, is if they find DNA of one of the victims inside that car. If they do, it's him. There's no way it's not. And I don't think for a second the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is going to, do something illegal for the Moscow Police Department. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. It would either.
Multi-agencies aren't going to do that. And so the ID cards, things like that, the DNA that was at his house, at his parents' house, although that was taken and done in Idaho. That was taken and done in Idaho. That was sent to Idaho for Idaho forensics. But, the DNA is kind of difficult. And if I look at it just based on that aspect alone, that the DNA is, let's just say it's 100% or 99% or 90% reliable, then yeah. But that's the question. Does the court even allow the DNA? Right? Because of the small sample size, the type of DNA that it was, and we've seen paperwork where it talks about that there's a possibility that the DNA may not be admissible in court. That way they wanted to find, they needed probable cause outside of just that DNA, which is why it's so lengthy. And it talks about, Kohberger's car, vehicle he was driving. And it talks about the phone pings. It talks about, how they were able to discover who he was and things of that nature. This court does. This court does what?
I guess you meant like they do take the DNA probably. But
Yeah, maybe. Louis, I'm not sure what comments you were having. I kind of look at the comments every now and then.
yeah,
But
I try to keep up with them, but there's so many today. So I'm like, I try to click on one and I accidentally click on the wrong one because it just skips it. So it's my fault sometimes that I put up weird comments.
I see your comments in here. I'm not sure why. I see where you say you can't, but there is the chat is slowed down. So if you're a member, you don't have to deal with that. But the chat is slow. What up, Publicly Buzzed? We're actually going to be on tonight with Publicly Buzzed. I forgot to tell you, Blue.
Yeah, I was like, wait, tonight?
Yeah, there's some news to you. But Blue, we're going to be on Publicly Buzzed.
Just tell me the time because I got orchestra thing like at 6 for my daughter.
Okay, it'll probably be well after that. Let's see. But yeah, to me, that's if she has this evidence, like I said before, to me, it has to either put somebody else at the scene committing the crime or Bryan Kohberger elsewhere. That's the only thing that could, in my opinion, that will exonerate him. And what I think most likely it is putting somebody else there. What do you think, Blue?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
I said that, in my opinion, if she has exonerating evidence, it has to be either she is putting somebody else at the crime, committing the crime, or she's putting Kohberger at another place. Which one do you think is probable? Or do you think that there's another situation that could be exonerating for her?
I would say that's too hard to speculate for me. But one of the things that I think that they could be doing is maybe she has an idea of maybe Dylan's state of mind. Maybe they were drinking together, or maybe using some other type of drugs that would not make her like credible or eyewitness statement credible. It's another theory I have.
But in my opinion, that would be just a defense to use, not so much exonerating evidence.
Because they go by Dylan's eyewitness saying there was a guy with bushy eyebrows. What if she was high as hell and she couldn't even tell?
I mean, if that was the case, let's just say that she was under the influence of something. It doesn't change the fact that they have the white Elantra outside of the house passing by. The only thing that she's able to give, and I'll be honest with you, when it comes to court, it's the defense is not, they're going to have a field day with it, is that this person was a certain height, a certain build, and had bushy eyebrows. They probably are able to determine that he was a certain race as well. Yeah. Now, if we take that aspect out of it and we just talk about the fact that there was audio taken from a ring cam, next door that heard the screams or heard the whimpering, the voices. You also hear you see the white Elantra in the area. That leads me to believe that the crime was committed around that time. Now, we don't know what Bethany stated. She stated a lot of statements according to this. Maybe perhaps, because there was another statement that was in here that said Dylan Mortenson had originally stated that she went to bed. And so that led me to believe that maybe she did lie. So maybe you are right. Maybe she does have a conflicting story than when Dylan said. But even at that, to exonerate him, that conflicting story would have to put either Kohberger there elsewhere or somebody else in that house.
Maybe it's somebody else at the house. You know what I mean? Like maybe see, and what we've heard in one of our calls from Kim is that there were more than one person there. So maybe
Kim did say that. Which there was more than one person there. You had the DoorDash driver and the person that committed the crime.
Yeah.
You know, and what they said is they saw somebody outside and somebody inside. So it's not like that's wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's pretty accurate. There was more than one person in there. She stated that somebody had seen, one of the victims had seen the perpetrator. Now, what she had said was it was in the downstairs, that they saw him go, downstairs at one point.
Yeah.
Now, there was rumors, and even the news media reported it, that there was a door open at 9 a.m. The front door was open at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Some people thought,
open.
yeah, some people thought maybe perhaps they were trying to air things out, or maybe perhaps the actor left out the front door. Because the other thing too is that back. So I still struggle with the sliding glass doors being the entry point and the exit point, because it was lit up that night too. The back porch from those light bulbs. They had a string of light bulbs throughout the back, so all that area was lit up. And all it would have taken was just, unplugging it. Now, perhaps if somebody's awake in the house and they see the lights go out outside, maybe that'll alert them, and maybe that's why he didn't do that. But that's pure speculation and just a lot of overthinking, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Was it Occam's razor edge or something like that, where the most simplest answer is probably the right one?
Yeah. 4 in the morning on a day after drinking, I'd be knocked out. Like, I wouldn't hear jack squat. So that's mine. But they were light sleepers, and they might hear something, but they didn't. Somebody did.
So it goes, perhaps Bethany can explain BK's DNA on the knife sheath. Maybe he sold it to one of them. Maybe they tried to sell it to him and he came in to see it to handle it previously. So that is a good aspect. There's a good possibility there with that. But even if that were the case, it doesn't exclude him from being the person. It just makes, if the knife sheath was found in the house, it just means, or if the victims own that knife, let's just say, it doesn't exclude Bryan Kohberger from entering into the house, finding the knife, and utilizing it. And so, to me, to exclude him or exculpatory evidence would have to be putting him at another place, or putting somebody else there. Perhaps, maybe she heard the voices of the suspect and she recognized the voice. I think that was referencing to what she was saying earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you. So he's a criminology major. He knows the verbiage to use. It's not so much his verbiage. It's going to be the verbiage from his lawyer. His attorney, Ann Taylor's probably writing this up. Even, he wouldn't have any aspect of it when it comes to the paperwork here.
Yeah.
We'll go through a couple of questions and then we'll probably be calling it a show. Let's see. Do you see anything in there, that question that you see?
I see one that somebody, if I can answer them, but I don't even see what they asked.
So, what if Bethany opened up the DoorDash? So, if she did, I don't think that excludes Kohberger either. I mean, regardless. The way this is worded, it talks about, him being basically some evidence out there that could exonerate him. Mike, yes, says it would be something serious. Material witness alone says it. Exculpatory evidence, another level. 100%. 100%. And like I said, this evidence needs to come out, because at the end of the day, if there is evidence there that says that he is an innocent person, he should not be in jail, and he shouldn't be in jail any longer if he is innocent. I'm not necessarily saying that he is. Like I said, I don't know. There are a few things I have trouble getting around. The phone being off during the commission of the crime, the vehicle, somewhat of the description does kind of match him. I understand that it could be torn apart in court, but just for the sake of what we know, those things do kind of point in that direction. But I don't know all the evidence, and if there's evidence that points to it being someone else, and the police department is hiding it, well, then Bryan Kohberger is probably going to be a very wealthy man here pretty soon.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that get falsely accused, but I just want to know, like, when they arrested him, instead of saying I'm innocent, I didn't do this, he said, was anybody else arrested? So to me, that's not an innocent man asking that question.
Well, the reason why I think he may have asked that is because his father drove the whole trip with him. He might be asking, did my dad get arrested? Was my dad arrested? Was my mom arrested? Was my family arrested because they were there at the house? They were housing him. And so that could have been the reason why. And if I was him and somebody asked me that question, that's my explanation. I'm not saying, was there a second person arrested because I had a partner? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so those things are possible. You know what? I haven't seen this at all. There was an article saying that it says, Ashley Banfield, I've been calling Bryan Kohberger on burner phone. I haven't seen this at all. You want to watch this, Blue, and then we'll comment it and then call the show?
Yeah. I saw it was in the comment thing, but I didn't see it either.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. This will be our reaction to it, and we'll do this live. Let's check it out.
There's no volume. You can't hear it. Or I can't hear it.
What was the burner phone story?
Well, that's what the prosecution will tell you, right? The only people that have burner phones are criminals that are trying to hide.
It's talking about the Lori. You know what? I'll just rewind it. It was talking that way they can watch from the beginning. Let's do this.
Can you tell me something real quickly, Alex? I just mentioned to our viewers who are watching right now that Lori had 18 different phone accounts, but I didn't even mention the burner phones. What's the story on the burner phone? Who has burner phones except for like drug dealers and criminals and me? I have one, but like, what was the burner phone story?
Well, that's what the prosecution will tell you, right? The only people that have burner phones are criminals that are trying to hide their misdeeds, or people that are trying to cover up and not let other people that they're associated with know about the things that they're doing. And so it was revealed today that multiple phone accounts existed for Chad, for Lori, for Alex Cox. Now, there were three in particular for each that really were doing the brunt of the misgivings and the misdeeds, I would say. But ultimately, what the defense is trying to point out is that just because someone has multiple phones doesn't make them a criminal. Now, of course, as you mentioned, those who have burner phones usually are up to no good. But really, there was a lot of talk today about the phones, about the communications, the side chats. Also, Lori was saving some of these burner phones that were associated to Chad with different names, like she would put him as a bishop in her phone, or Alex Cox had different pseudonyms and aliases on all these different burner phones as well. So a lot of conversation about tracking phones today and about the phone activity that were happening.
Well, I just want to be really clear. I am not a drug dealer or a criminal, but I have a burner phone because I've actually been calling Bryan Kohberger in jail, trying to get him to, consider returning a call. And he hasn't so far. But Alex, you'll be the first to know if Bryan Kohberger calls me back. You and Brian Entin. You can just keep trying. That's what we do. Alex, awesome job. Fantastic. Way to go with the exclusive interview. Thank you for watching. Go to
So that was a big nothing burger. Sorry, I'm gonna have to block somebody. Rude something. No, I'm sorry, man. That was pretty rude on your end. All right, so there it is. So when it comes to this aspect, she just tried calling Bryan Kohberger. Maybe we should try. I doubt he'll answer. I doubt he'll return. It wouldn't behoove of him to do so. And thank you so much. We go forward. We have a new member.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not showing up. I
It's
can't pull it up.
for longer.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We are going to do a members only chat or live, complete live this weekend. So we've been talking about it. We're going to do it this weekend. But when it comes to this aspect here about Kohberger, they just tried calling. That's nothing. That was a big nothing burger. My bad. But let's go. Do you have anything else to say, Big Blue, before we let everybody out?
No, I just want to say, everybody have a good rest of your day. I did see a story the other day that's not really in the news, but there was I heard that they were having the memorials this week. I guess there was another shooting at a school, and I can't remember the name of the school. I just want to, my condolences go out to the family. They're talking about how it was a low-income kind of neighborhood, and some of the people weren't too happy because one of the moms wanted to have the video at the school gym, and I think if he was a basketball player, why not? Let her have her grief in peace. Let her grief in peace. And you don't want to go to it, don't go.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that said, guys, if there's anything else that breaks, we'll be covering it as well. We'll be talking about that information. I got one last question for you. Do you think they're going to quash this subpoena? Or do you think they're going to make her go?
I think they're going to squash it because they're going to want to have her to go to the big court. I think there's not enough there to, I think, overturn anything.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I, for one, hope they don't. I hope that. And the reason being is if she has evidence that could lead to this man's, that lead to his innocence, then that should be known. That should be priority one. If there's evidence that makes somebody believe that that a person is being wrongfully convicted, wrongfully accused, that should be priority one. They cleared a lot of people early on in this investigation, very quickly. And if there's evidence out there that clears this guy, they should have done the same thing.
I remember in the news it said that they had enough to convict. So I think they do. We'll see.
We'll see, man. We'll see. We'll keep you guys updated. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Ring that notification.
Yeah, we're almost at 36,000, guys. 500 out here. If y'all ain't subs, at least sub. It's free. Get us past that 35,000 threshold, man.
We would appreciate it so much, y'all. With that being said, we're the Drunk Turkey Show. We'll be on tonight on Publicly Buzzed, and we'll be back here tomorrow night live at 7:35 Central. Y'all be safe. Till then.